So our top three calls. From last week, we still have the issue of lots of people didn't really plan for the amount of licenses that they need. We still have distributors with delays falling behind. So this is actually a pretty prevalent issue still. Online resellers are still getting more and more risky. We've run into actually a couple this week where people attempted to buy things from an online reseller that never got delivered because it doesn't take much effort to pop open a website store and take people's credit cards and take people's money. So definitely something to be very, very leery of, especially if it's not an online retailer that you traditionally do business with. Hijacked email threads and fraud attacks. This definitely has gone up. The more people that have been successfully transitioned to working from home and on the VPN, we've been seeing this go up quite severely. We've also seen a couple of situations where folks are being exempted from MFA for speed, and that's almost instantly resulted in one of these fraud attacks coming through. The real thing that's needed for protection there is going to be your multi-factor with conditional access. That is the traditional requirement. Conditional access is for people, of course, who are on the Microsoft or the Google G Suite, whereas MFA is for anyone, whether it's on-prem or off-prem. And then the account takeover portion of cloud app security. That's also going to be pretty critical for preventing that hijack. We do a lot of auditing here. If people are wondering who is most commonly attacking, what we see from an online email hijack, it's typically South Africa right now, France, and Belgium, and Amsterdam. So those are typically where we're seeing it come from. I know everyone's always talking about Russia and China, but when it comes to these fraud attacks, that's actually the most common geolocation that we find hitting people, which is not to say it doesn't come from the other countries as well. It's just that typically, when a country gets good at something or when a criminal element gets good at something, they focus on it. So it's not surprising that we see different types of attacks coming from different geolocations. And when we talk about geo-IP blocking, that's where we really have to get into, okay, are we really doing a business with North Africa? And if not, do we really want to be accepting, emails from there? It's definitely in this current kind of hectic stage that everyone's in with the coronavirus. We just need to make sure that gets ratcheted up in terms of security or lack of trust. In order to keep everything safe. We're also seeing a pretty big uptick in fake executive emails with malware links and PDFs. We're not seeing much in terms of Office documents. In fact, we've seen pretty much no interesting new Office documents. And when I say interesting, I mean we're ignoring the stuff that every spam filter on earth is already cleansing, right? So if we rule out that 80% of the garbage and just concentrate on the 20% that's interesting, new, different, difficult, it's more and more we're seeing malware links to encrypted sites and PDFs. The malware links to encrypted sites are also often going to things like Box, Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, things like that. Which a lot of people are often whitelisting from their security for ease of employee use. Definitely want to stop that because that is a prime location. Those public drives or even those personal shares are being spun up, used for serving out malware, and then shut down before they can get a reputation or anything like that. Best protection on those pieces are going to be an API-based CAS to get that zero-day sandboxing capability, which basically means if the executive email is faked because the account was taken over, when they email it to the accounting department or to IT or to all employees, or worse than that, to your customers, that's going to be inside. And a lot of the old school security is not doing an inside-to-inside protection or an inside-to-outside protection. And so those are definitely things that we have to be concerned about because we're seeing them across the business contacts that we have and that call us. We're seeing this escalate pretty quickly. And to match with that, next-gen AV, we've been talking about it for about a year. It's becoming more and more important that people migrate to some kind of next-gen, multiple sandboxes, and definitely memory inspection. Those are all pretty critical right now. Why they're picking on PDFs and malware links versus Office documents. I think for me personally, we've seen that Office documents have been picked on so much that there's a lot of good security to tear them apart. But PDFs were kind of treated as quote unquote images, so they weren't really dealt with. There is a vulnerability with Microsoft right now called the Adobe Type Manager, and we've had people ask if that's related to this PDF issue. They actually have nothing to do with each other. And even though the vulnerability is called Adobe Type Manager, it's actually part of Windows that deals with font control and has nothing to do with Adobe. So uninstalling Adobe or anything like that is not relevant to that vulnerability, as a side note.